Hey there, YouTube. I've been threatening to make another installment to my little UFO series for a long time, and I haven't. I've done a lot of podcasts, had some health problems. This is going to be short. I just had an odd thing happen. I've had a lot of odd things happen. I mean, a lot. This is one. And this really kind of blew me away. I wanted to make a short video about it. About 9 days ago, I had this strange experience with this lady who came to my home to buy a tractor I was selling. Anybody who's followed my little UFO series knows that in 1994, March the 18th, I was going to work at 5 a.m. and about 3 miles south of Flint, Michigan, on US 23. I drove my car under this enormous triangular ship that was maybe 125 foot in the air. It was just to the right of the southbound lanes in which I was traveling. What's important is on that day, two of my coworkers, two females driving to work, got to work an hour late. They did have vague memories of their van spinning around. They were headed south from Flint to this town called New Hudson to go to work. And they were headed south and ended up driving north on US 23. Had to turn around and come back. I made a report to MUFON about my sighting, and bizarrely, the gal at MUFON told me that two ladies carpooling to work at 10 p.m. the night before to a different factory. These are two distinctly different women, not the women I worked with, were driving south. She said she didn't mention them remembering spinning around or anything. She said, the gal at MUFON said that one of the ladies started chuckling and said, "Hey, we're going north." And the other lady was like, "How did this happen?" They turned their car around, and on their second pass going south, they said they drove right under this massive ship that was straddling both lanes of US 23 at the same spot I saw it, which is between the Baldwin Road and Thompson Road exits. Actually, there's not an exit for Baldwin Road. It just goes over the freeway. It's about a mile distance. They saw this thing between Baldwin and Thompson Roads. But both sets of these women got turned around. They were headed south and bizarrely ended up driving north and had to turn around and drive back, right? So about 9 days ago, a gal came. I was selling a garden tractor on Craigslist. A gal comes to my house, and we start. She's real. Her and I we kind of hit it off immediately. She was a tiny little gal. She's Sicilian and about 4'11", very short gal, and just a little dynamo, a real character. And we were talking about all kinds of things. And I don't recall how she showed me pictures of her children and some pets. She has a pet turkey and a pet chicken. And I said, I love animals. I said, I've never been able to shoot an animal, I guess. And I just made a crack. I said, I've seen a UFO one time, and I said, I think it kind of confirmed to me that we're not at the top of the food chain. Maybe it's why I can't shoot animals. And she said, oh, I'm really into UFOs. She said, my dad saw an orb. He lives in Holly, which is south of Flint. And there was an orb above a church across the street from him 3 times. And he called the police, and they thought he was nuts. And the neighbors saw it and everything. And she said, but I watched every UFO documentary. I'm really into this stuff. And I said, wow, so you're really into it? I said, have you ever seen a UFO? And she said, and this was so bizarre to me. Just so strange. She kind of looked down at the ground. She had this quizzical look on her face. She said, well, I've never seen a UFO, but I had this odd thing happen. And I didn't tell her about these women, right? And she said, I got off of work and I was going to go to my mom's house before I went straight home. Apparently she works out near Fenton. And she said, I got on US 23 at the Thompson Road entrance there, going north. And I'm like, this is 1,500 yards from where I saw this thing in 94, right? She says, I got on the freeway going north. And she said, I was driving along and all of a sudden I realized, I was coming into Fenton. She said, I was going south suddenly. And she said, I get on the freeway at Thompson Road to drive home every night. I remember getting on the freeway. I was going north. And she said, suddenly, I'm going south and I don't know why. She said, I had to call my mom and say, hey, I'm going to be late. I don't know what happened, but, I was headed towards Flint and now I'm going south and I got to turn around. And her mother was like, what? I mean, I could not believe what I was hearing. It was so bizarre. I mean, what are the chances, like 30 years later, the lady that comes to my house to buy a tractor is going to tell me this kooky story? And she also told me this story in response to my question of, have you ever seen a UFO? So I'm thinking at some level, she knows something strange happened. And she did add, too. She said, another time, she said, I got on US 23 going north at White Lake Road, which is about 7 miles south of Fenton. And she said, I got on the freeway going north. I was coming back to Flint. And she said, suddenly I was just kind of approaching it. She didn't give me a road. She said, suddenly I was basically in Flint, like at Bristol Road or something. And she said, I have no memory of the drive at all. It's like I got on at White Lake Road and just suddenly I was in Flint, which is probably 12, 15 miles. It was just like, and I just could not believe that I couldn't believe that the woman told me basically kind of the same story as my coworkers, that she, right there at Thompson Road, which is where this thing was sitting, like I said, maybe 1,000 yards, 1,500 yards north of that in 94, that recently she got on the freeway to go north and suddenly was going south and didn't know why. And her dad's seen UFOs, and she answered again in response. She gave me this story when I said, have you ever seen a UFO? And she said, no, but this. And I'm like, I came in and said to my wife, I said, you are not even going to believe what this woman just said to me. And it may seem like a little thing. To me, it was like, I've had a lot of weird things happen that I've been going to make a bigger video, but I just found that unbelievable. And, I'll be honest, I think a lot of people in the UFO community don't even believe some of the things that have happened to me, because they're not, it's not so much UFOs, it's this high strangeness stuff that just, I'd still like to make a longer video. A lot of stuff has happened, but that just kind of blew my mind. So I thought I'd make a short video and upload this possibly to YouTube, maybe. Like I said, I've talked a lot. Kind of tired. I just could not believe this situation. But with that, be nice to each other. I'm still alive, kind of. So I may still upload a feature length, a longer video with a lot of things that have happened.